Hi, welcome to the first class of how to write online, and this is starting work. I'm going to teach you how to prepare for a job and how to find a job. All right, you're going to start by putting some work together. When you go looking for a job to write online, people are going to ask you for examples. Before they hire you, they want to know that you can do the work. They want to know that you can do it well. So they're going to see some examples of your work. And if you have that to show them, things can go a lot smoother and you'll get hired a lot faster. If you have some really good work to show them, then you're more likely to get the job you want and to get it paid at the rate you want. Okay, so you're going to want to start by putting together a blog article. That will be the majority of what you're going to write online usually. For most people who write online, they usually write a lot of blogs. These are sales blogs, these are personal blogs, these are blogs for the company, all right? And basically what a blog is it's written in first person and it's very personable, it's very conversational, and it, um, it promotes something usually. It tells an experience in most cases, but for the sake of writing online, it's usually going to sell something. And we'll get into examples of how to do this and how to do other kinds of online writing. Okay, but I just want to give you an idea of what you need to have prepared. Okay, so we'll cover how to write a blog in a later video. Okay, so have a blog. You can have some fiction, like a short story. I wouldn't do a poem. Short story is fine. Don't go for a novel. They're not going to read your novel to see if you're if you're a good writer. They might read the first chapter or something. Okay, and you can have a press release. You can have a news story. You can have a product review. I would say a blog, a product review, and some sort of fiction writing, preferably a short story, are going to be your best examples. Okay, that gives you a diverse set of things to show them. Shows you can do a few different things, and it shows you can do relevant material that they probably want to hire you for. All right, when you do this, look over your work. Before you show anybody your work and say, here's an example of what I can do, edit it, look it over, read it a couple times. Maybe have someone else look at it. Run it through um, a grammar program, maybe like Grammarly or Microsoft Word's own grammar checker. Okay, and you can also run it through a plagiarism checker. Okay, these will all help you make sure that you're showing them something worthwhile, something that they're going to like. All right, so you want to have those ready to go. You also, before you go looking for work, first of all, have your work ready. Have a few examples of your work. Secondly, determine what your rates are going to be. Now, if you have no experience writing online, then you should start low. And I started out at $10 US per 1,000 words. Okay? And I found that was the going rate. Before I decided on that rate, I looked around and I checked what other people were charging, what clients were looking for, and that was what I found to be the average, was about 10 US per 1,000 words. Now there are people who will lowball that number, and most of them are probably not very good writers. So if you have a little experience, you've had some education, you do know how to do some writing, then $10 per 1,000 words is a really good place to start. And you can work up from there. As you build your client base, they'll be more loyal to you. They'll want to pay you more to keep you on as their writer. And so you can raise your rates over time. But you want to start low because you don't have any work to show that's published. You don't have any clients who can vouch for you and tell your potential clients, hey, this person's a good writer. So you want to start low, and that way you'll get the jobs, you'll get steady work, okay? Because you will find a lot of people competing for the same work when you're first starting out. Until you build your client base, you're going to have a lot of competition. So you're going to have really good examples of your work, and you're going to have competitive rates. Okay, so start with those. And the places you can look for work are freelancer.com, freelancewriting.com, and indeed.com. These are probably the best ones for freelance writers, and they have other things beyond just freelance writing. Some of them do, but those are going to be where most of your potential clients are going to go. They're going to be looking for writers. They're going to be looking for people who don't have a lot of experience there. Okay, now once you build up some experience, once you've got a client base going, you'll have more options open to you. Okay, another thing I would suggest before you get too far into looking for a job is to set up some online profiles. Your Facebook page is fine, but it would be better if you had a professional social media page. Okay, not necessarily something that has all your personal pictures on it, but something that has a professional look to it, and maybe has some examples of your work experience on it. Okay, so LinkedIn is really good for that. And if people want to know more about you, you can send them there. You can use like Instagram or Facebook or whatever, Twitter, whatever social media you like, but remember to keep it professional if you're sending potential clients there, if they want to know more about you. Okay, now a lot of them may look you up online, so watch your social media pages, watch what you're posting, because you're going to be linked to their business and they may not like that kind of link if you're a person who's doing things that are maybe not legal or maybe reflects bad on their business. So just be a little careful of that. As soon as you put yourself out there online, your entire online presence will be scrutinized. Not maybe by every client or every potential client, but some of them will be looking, and they may not offer you jobs because of what they're seeing on your Instagram, on your Twitter. Okay? So be careful of that. Be aware that people are looking and checking and looking into you. As creepy as that may be, that's how we are in this digital age. Your potential employers are looking to see what you're about, how your philosophy of life is, how that may affect the writing, how that affects their company, and how it reflects on them and their company. Okay, because some of them are smaller businesses and they're really, really careful about who they associate with, who they link to, whose names they put on their site. So if you're wanting to get your name out there, if you're wanting to build a client base up, if you're wanting to get recommended to other people, watch your social media. Okay, so you've set your rates, you're looking for work. Now, when you're looking for work, you want to make sure it's work you can do. All right, you won't be able to do every job that's asking for a freelance writer. There will be some work that's above your level. Maybe it's technical writing. Maybe it's something you don't have a specialty and don't have any experience with. Some of that you can research, some of it you can look up, but some of it you need to just say, no, that's not for me. And there will be times where once you've got your name out there on these sites like Freelancer, freelancewriting.com, and Indeed.com, once you've got your name out there, you will get requests from people every now and then. And sometimes you'll have to say no. Sometimes you have to say, I don't know how to do that, or maybe I can try to do that, but you want to make sure that you're only saying yes to the jobs you know you can do, especially starting out, because that's where your reputation is really shaky, and you're working this entire time to build up your reputation. All the work you do should be promoting a good reputation, should be building a good reputation, should be building good relationships with clients. And so if you take on more than you can handle, maybe you're taking on a bunch of work that you won't be able to get done in time, then you need to just say no. You need to be honest and upfront with your clients and potential clients and tell them, I don't think I can do this. It's too technical for me. I have no experience here. Maybe you need to find another writer. And they'll appreciate that honesty, and you'll save yourself from some embarrassment and some damage to your reputation. Okay? Now, as you are trying to build a client base, you want to be talking to your clients, communicating with them, stay in touch through email, through Skype, whatever your preference is, maybe through the phone. That can get really expensive, especially if they're in other countries. A lot of my clients are people in Australia and England, and so I can't stay in contact with them over the phone. I use Skype and I use email primarily, and some of them will want to chat with you back and forth really quickly, and email doesn't always work for that. So make sure you have something set up like a Skype or a Google Chat, something like that, where they can chat back and forth with you, and it doesn't have to be just through email, because that can help things go a lot smoother when you have some sort of chat set up. Okay, you could use WhatsApp, all sorts of different apps now and programs and sites you can use that will really help you stay in contact with them. All right, find out what they prefer. That will help. Be flexible. Be willing to download and use new sites and apps to stay in contact with your clients. They'll really appreciate you taking that extra effort. All right, as you build your client base, you want to establish deadlines. You want to find out when they want the work done, or maybe they'll ask you, how soon can you have this done? Be realistic. It'll be nice if you could say, yeah, I can have it tomorrow. I can have it in a couple hours. But don't push yourself so hard that you end up really just messing up and not being able to deliver, because that's going to hurt your reputation. And if you constantly do that, they're not going to come to you for work anymore, okay? So I got all my work initially through one fellow who was building websites in Australia, and he was one of the biggest um, website builders in that country. So he had a lot of contacts, a lot of people he worked with, writers and website builders as well. And so through him, I found all my other contacts and all the 50 different people I've worked for over the 7 years I've been doing this, all through this one guy, because I built a really good reputation with him. And I worked quickly and I edited my work. I made sure I turned in good stuff. I didn't overcharge him. I was very careful when I was adding up the totals for the week. And he was really happy with my work. And so when he didn't have work for me, or when he only had a little bit of work for me, he would refer me to other people and say, "This is a good writer. You should hire him." He'd basically do the sales pitch for me. You know, I didn't have to sell myself. People would sometimes ask for an example of my work, but they already had this trusted website builder recommending me. And so they didn't have to go search into my profiles and ask me a bunch of questions and get a bunch of examples of work from me, because they already got the recommendation of someone else who had received my work and was happy with it, and that was enough for them. So as you build your reputation, as you do work, think about how it's affecting your future clients, your future client base, and how it's affecting your career, because any bridges you burn, any clients you upset, any work you turn in late or of poor quality is going to affect your total reputation, is going to hurt your career. So be really, really careful with that. Make sure you turn work in on time. Be very clear with your clients about your deadline, about when you expect to be paid, how much you expect to be paid. Let's talk about getting paid for a minute. I'm going to put this on the board here because it's really, really important. And it'll tie into avoiding scammers and avoiding being taken advantage of. All right? So your payment should typically be once a week or after the work is done. Alright? One or the other. So if you are doing a big project, you want to get paid every week. If it's going to take you more than 1 week to do the project, if this is at least a couple weeks of work, you should get paid at the end of the week. If this is the first time you're working for this client, ask to get paid a little bit up front if that's not too much trouble, okay? Because that's going to help you. Ask for just a small down payment, okay? Because that's them showing good faith to you, and that's pretty standard practice for the industry when you're dealing with a first-time writer, a first-time client, to ask for maybe one article to be turned in and pay for that just to see how it goes, just to make sure they're paying you. Okay, this helps avoid scammers both ways, and it builds trust. Okay, so be really careful your first time dealing with a client. Be very clear about when you expect to get paid. After you build up a client base and start working with people for a while, you'll have this repertoire with each other, and you'll know when deadlines are expected, and they'll know when you expect to be paid. And you won't have to deal with all that back and forth. But initially you want to be very clear. Lay it out. Have a written record of your agreement. You don't have to draw up a legal agreement. I don't think that's necessary. I've only ever had to do that maybe one time with one client because we were doing large scale work. We were doing novels together. But generally just a little written conversation through email or Skype, and that's your record. That's your agreement. Okay? And then you can quote that or whatever if you need to, if you're having trouble getting paid on time. Okay? So you can tell your client, hey, you said you would pay me by such and such a time. Why haven't I been paid? Okay? And you want to do it all very friendly, of course. Okay? This is how you keep a good relationship going and make sure you're not burning bridges. So if it's a large project, get paid once a week. If it's a small project, maybe just a couple thousand words, a couple hundred words, you should get paid within the next day or two after your work is submitted. Give them time to look it over. Give them time to read it. Give them time to process payment. Some of them are waiting to pay you until they are paid by whoever they're doing the work for. A lot of these people that I work for, they build websites, okay? That's their whole job. And so the companies that ask them to build a website are asking for them to develop content, written content for the websites. And so they're coming to you for that content, and then they're going back to the business owner with your content, publishing it on the site, Okay, and sometimes there's a little waiting period there for payment to go through to your client and then to come to you. So be patient with them. Don't be too patient, don't be too lax, because then you'll be taken advantage of. All right, so establish the deadline up front. If they don't stick to the deadline, then you need to remind them nicely. If they are still giving you trouble, still not answering you maybe, then you can tell them you have a late fee that you're going to have to charge. If you tell them you have a late fee, then give them time to pay that. Don't charge the late fee on the day you bring it up, okay? And a late fee may be something you want to talk about initially, okay? Usually it's not a problem. It's not something that needs to be brought up, but it's a good idea to have that rate set in your mind. And then if you have a client who repeatedly pays late, just remind them, hey, I have a late fee. I have a late fee. I will charge this to you if the work is, if I submit the work to you and you haven't paid in more than a week from the submission date or something like that. You set up a reasonable date, give them a little time to make the payment, and then charge that late fee. And then don't do any work for them until they have paid not only what they owe for the regular work, but also for the late fee. And that way you establish boundaries and you show them you're serious. Okay? So this is starting your work. That's just the basics of it. You're going to want to have your content ready. You're going to want to know what your rates are going to be. Establish your rates. Be very clear with your rates. Let your clients know up front, this is how much I charge per 1,000 words. Okay? You may want to know how much to charge. Okay? We talked about this a little bit, but let's go into a little more detail. Okay? So I think a very good starting rate is $10 per 1,000 words. Okay? That's for original content. What if you're doing rewrites? A lot of what you might do is take content that's somewhere else on the web and rewrite it. Now, you may do that in your regular writing, but if your client asks you, hey, if I send you a link, if I send you an article and I want you to rewrite this, what would you charge me? You should be willing to charge a lower rate for that because they've done some of the work for you. They've done the research for you. Now, what I initially charged was $8 per 1,000 words. Okay? And that's for rewrites. You will be asked to do rewrites. I get asked to do rewrites a lot, and it's really easy work, but don't charge way, way less than your regular rate because you may find that some of the rewriting is not as easy as you thought, and it may take you a while to rewrite some of the stuff because it could be very poorly written. Okay? A lot of times what people will send you is very good content, very good blogs and articles and website links, and they just want you to copy that, rewrite that, okay? And that's pretty simple because you've already got a good template to go on, and you're just basically rewriting in your own words. And so it's pretty easy to do, and you don't have to charge too much, okay? So you want to establish rates for all that. You may also want rates for editing. Some people ask you if you are a native English speaker and you know how to edit and the work you've sent them is very well edited and grammatically correct, they may ask you to take what someone else has written and just edit it because maybe they paid someone dirt cheap prices to write something and the person they paid that money to is not a native English speaker and so the content's not very good. I get some of this sometimes. They say, hey, can you make this look good? Can you just fix it up a little bit? You want to rate for that as well. And that's kind of up to you what your skill is. I would say maybe $5 per 1,000 words starting out for editing. It just depends how bad it is, you know, and how confident you are in your ability to take something that's really badly written and rewrite it. And sometimes I've even charged to $8 per 1,000 words. You know, that's not my current rate now, but my initial rate starting out, you know, for rewrites just because the work was so bad and I had so much work to do. Okay, so think of what your rates are going to be, all right? And be very clear about rates, be very clear about deadlines. If you think you're not going to be able to turn the work in on time, let your client know. As soon as you know you're going to have a problem turning the work in on time, tell your client. Email, contact them, whatever it takes. Make sure they get that message and do your best to turn the work in on time, but things happen If you explain a situation to your client, they can be understanding, okay? And they may be willing to pay you more if you can put in extra hours to maybe work on the weekends or work nights or times you don't normally work just to get that done on time, all right? So be prepared for all that. Just make sure you're communicating with your client. Many of them will be okay if you turn in the work a little late as long as you told them it will be late. Just like you don't like to be paid late, they don't like to get the work late because they're not always the ones who decide the deadline for the work. Many times they're dealing with a business owner or someone who has hired them, or maybe they're dealing with their boss who hires a bunch of people like them to find people like you. They have someone to answer to many times, and so when you are late on your deadline, it hurts them and it reflects badly on them. So be really clear with late deadlines. Try not to let them happen. Do what you can, because you make your own schedule as a freelance writer. So you want to try to turn things in on time. But if it can't work, you can't get it in on time, be sure to communicate with them, let them know. All right, and just go over your work, edit it, edit it, edit it, make sure it's good, make sure you're happy with it. I personally edit my work twice. I will write it, I will go through whatever corrections Microsoft Word suggests, and then I will read it through 2 times. Okay? The first time I'm fixing a lot of my little errors because I write really fast, so I make a lot of errors. The first time fixes all those major errors, makes it readable. Okay? The second one is to catch the little stuff that I didn't see the first time because I'm so focused on the errors, I might not be paying attention to syntax and grammar and things like plurals. So I can catch all that the second time. And by the second time, I think I've got it pretty well polished, and then I'm happy to send it in to the client. The goal I go for, and I tell people, is make sure that every work you submit to your client is work that you would be proud to show to a new client as a showcase of your work, as an example of your best work. Do your best work every time, and you won't have to worry about a client coming back and being unhappy with it. Okay?